Hi everyone, I'm Tom, and today I'm going to be showing you Gloomhaven again. Well, yes, but specifically, I'm showing you an insert for Gloomhaven. It's a very, very big game with a lot of stuff in it, and if you like me, then you'll really like organisation. And this is the folded space insert, which is, rather than the standard wooden inserts. Well, why don't I show you? They are a special kind of foam core with extra kind of reinforcement on the edges. This is the nice little instruction booklet of how to put them together. They come on punch boards, much like you'd get in any board game to pop out, the cardboard components. Instead, you're popping out you're popping out foam core. And just slotting it together and using some PVA glue to reinforce it. And this is how it all looks in the box. I don't have my map tiles in here because I have them in one of those expanding folder things, but yeah, they would just fit on top like this, and then all of your books come out, your secret envelopes, and you have all of these lovely little boxes that you can decide what you need to stay in the box or come out when you are playing the game. All of the character boxes fit in here. I have a couple out that are, that we are in our campaign still. But you have the overlay tiles for the maps there, all sorts of the status tokens and the objective tokens, and a couple of the special terrains, the rubble tiles. Then more tokens, the poison, different kinds of traps, the 10 XP tile. These are kind of the things we don't really use. We don't use the 10 XP tokens now that I got the things from the second edition Kickstarter. The dials I ordered, and we use an app for the element board, so we don't. This is kind of the stuff we don't need section I've made for myself. We have again missing two of the characters that are in the little stand for our campaign, but you have nice little boxes to hold the standees. Health and the tables and chests and things like that. Summons and rubble. Then we have all of the monsters, and they are for space reasons and to keep the insert small. They are a little close together, but you can see at a glance you can kind of tilt them over and see quite quickly which monsters you need to pull out from where. And I could probably go to a bit more trouble of organising them by something. I did just kind of slot them in where they fitted, but I could do with some way of saying this where each thing's go. This is for the bigger monsters, and you can see more at a glance there. And this is where my organisation comes into it again. You might think there aren't many cards in these card holders. I keep the road cards, the road events and the city events in a little like a trading card folder, and the item cards as well. So there would be many more cards. You can keep the road cards and the city cards, and the ones that you've currently got in use separate in the you've got a lot of room for dividing and organising these cards. Then there are some things for the smaller cards, the modifiers or the item cards as well. You would probably keep in there. And then there are smaller ones that you can have out on the table for the things that you draw, like for the goal cards for each scenario, or maybe like I chose to put the things people will be drawing. So, blessings at the back, curses around the front. Then we have a couple more token boxes. This one is for stands, and just thinking these look a bit weird. I ordered these from a website because I had the first edition ones that could be a bit snappy. Not incredibly snappy, but snappy enough for me to warrant buying some different ones. And then another one to have out on the table for the coins as well. And then finally, there are these bigger ones that are to hold the monsters. And again, I haven't organised these properly because we use use an app for we use a website that has the monster ability decks in it. We still have the stat cards out, and they're in alphabetical order all nicely. We have the stat cards out in the envelopes so that we at a glance can see what the stats of the different enemies we are fighting are. But the way you would normally organise this is you would use these as dividers. So you would have the Savas Ice Storm and the Lava Flow, and then you would have the cards for each of those monsters, and so you could have basically two rows of cards. So you would have Ice Flow there, Lava Flow there, and then easy at a glance, these become dividers so you can flick through and see all of the cards. But I have been a bit lazy because we don't do things like that, and it would be more inconvenient to put the ability cards in between there where we don't use them. So they are kind of stacked up there. With the old way that I used to do it when we very first started to play, having these dividers and things. But yeah, I don't need that now because thankfully technology has made me lazier. But also, yeah, it's made things really, really convenient by not having to shuffle and keep drawing all of those cards. But yeah, that is all of the things of the insert. So it's, you can kind of pick and choose what you lay out. There are tons and tons of little boxes that just make organising it really nice and setting it up a lot quicker than it had been with the insert that came with the game, for me anyway. But now, over to me talking to you face to face. And now time for the first impressions kind of portion of the video. So I checked these inserts out first at Essen 2017. I saw the folded space stall there and thought it was a really, really great idea because, the wooden inserts that people like Broken Token or Meeple Realty make, they are absolutely fantastic. And, they do their job and they are lovely, but cost is always a factor. Having those nice wooden pieces is very expensive to make and so even more expensive to buy. And when it comes to something like Gloomhaven, that becomes a real issue. They are getting towards the £70-80 range, which is, it's more than what I paid for the game, but it's around that cost for the game itself. And, there are tons of things. It's an enormous box. I don't begrudge them that, but from the perspective of someone that can't really afford an insert like that, the idea of these folded space foam core inserts really excited me. That a Gloomhaven insert for less than £30, and so yeah, I went straight over to the store and checked out what they were doing, and they ran a successful Kickstarter and are planning another for all sorts of other games. So it works based on kind of punch boards, the same that you would get and pop out your components in a board game. Instead, these are made of foam core instead of cardboard, with special, maybe harder backing than normal foam core would have, more sturdy backing. And they slot together beautifully, just like putting together one of those wooden inserts. They slot together, you use a bit of PVA glue to add some rigidity to them. And yeah, quite quickly, even with the sheer amount that I needed to make for the Gloomhaven insert, they are made very, very quickly, and the way that they organise it, they come in lots of little boxes, so you can kind of choose what is going to be out there on the table. I really like that factor of it. You don't have to bring it all out, but there are nice little containers that you can just have on the table for all the ease of access to the many, many tokens that you'll be using in Gloomhaven. And they've come up with some really clever ideas to store all the stuff, like the way that the monster cards, using the dividers of the stat cards, the actual ability cards kind of slot between those. There are tons of spaces for all of the various, event cards, road cards, and all of your modifier decks. There are individual spaces that you can keep all of that stuff separate in there, as you would expect. So you can just really speed up your play of the game. Your setup of it. You're not rifling through all of these different things trying to find out what you need. It's all got its own section in the insert. The one thing that's maybe a little bit of an issue, not really much, is the way that the monster standees are organised. It's very, very close together, I would say, and it's a little harder than I'd like to be able to just see at a glance which monsters are where. But it's not much of an issue. You can see them, and it's just if they were all laid out flat, then I thought that like I've seen in some other inserts, then that would be nice. But at the same time, I did speak to the guy that folded space and say, what about this thing? Why was it done that way? And it's purely for cost to keep them on punch boards of that size and to keep the cost of the insert low. That was a big factor that they knew that people wanted, and yeah, that is a huge factor, and I'm glad that it stayed that way, because although there are nicer things that I can't remember which insert has it now, but they have the individual tuck boxes for each of the monsters and things. All of those things are beautiful, but it always comes down to the same thing of cost was a massive issue. And I think this folded space insert is a really good way of combating that, and not losing any of the. It looks lovely all laid out, and it's very, very rigid. I've tried too soon pulling them apart when the glue wasn't dry enough. But once it's all set in stone, then yeah, it's just as well, maybe not as rigid as wood, because wood's wood. But as much as a board game insert needs to be, it's very, very rigid, very, very easy to make. But yeah, you can see for yourself. If you particularly need an insert for Gloomhaven, I think generally a lot of people would like one. Then this is a really nice extra option to have in the arena of usually very expensive, ornate wooden inserts that need so much stuff to pack in that box that they inevitably become very expensive. But you can check out the Folded Space insert. I'll have more videos coming for a couple more games that I have inserts for. But yeah, that's Folded Space Gloomhaven insert. Hope that gave you some interesting insight into whether or not you'd like to pick one up. Bye.